Egwene's rapid climb to the Amyrlin Seat has always split opinion among those who knew the old White Tower. Was she a genius whose talent demanded acceleration? Or a beneficiary of chaos who happened to be in the right place at the right time? The debate hinges on one question. Would her abilities have shone so brightly if the tower hadn't been tearing itself apart? There's no denying external factors played a role. Before Siuan's deposition and Elaida's tyrannical rise, the tower's slow grind would have smothered even her gifts. Novices with raw talent like nynaeve, who arrived around the same time, were forced to wait years for advancement, their skills refined only after proving obedience to the system. Egwene, by contrast, stepped into a void. The exiled Aes Sedai needed a leader who could rally them against Elaida, who understood Tel'aran'rhiod, Riod, a weapon against the Dark One, and who had Rand's trust, a lifeline to the Dragon Reborn. She wasn't just the best choice, she was the only choice. But to dismiss her as a product of circumstance ignores the talent that made her that choice. Her command of Tel'aran'rhiod wasn't just luck. In the Shadow Rising, she outsmarted moiraine, a Forsaken who'd spent centuries mastering the dream world by turning moirdaine's own weaves against her. A feat no seasoned Aes Sedai had managed. Her ability to link with dozens of sisters at once, weaving Sidar into a shield strong enough to block the Dark One's influence in a memory of light, was a skill even Moiraine couldn't match at her age. The chaos gave her a stage, but it was her talent that made her worth watching. Without that skill, she'd have been just another exiled novice, lost in the shuffle. If circumstance gave her the stage, her trial by fire proved she belonged on it. Again and again, she turned immense pressure into proof of her worth, even when her inexperience should have broken her. The most brutal test came in Knife of Dreams, when Elaida captured her and threw her in a Tel'aran'rhiod trap cell, depriving her of food, water, and the ability to channel freely. Elaida's goal was simple: break her will, turn her into a puppet who denounced the exiles. Instead, Egwene turned the cell into a command center. She used her mastery of the dream world to communicate with allies, focusing on Min's face as she slept to send messages about Elaida's defenses. She befriended a Red Ajar sister assigned to guard her, pointing out how Elaida's cruelty was destroying the tower, until the guards secretly slipped her food and a small channeling tool. When she finally escaped, she didn't run. She led a counterattack, using Tel'aran'rhiod to disable the tower's wards and convince Elaida's own supporters to switch sides. It was a plan so bold, so precise, that even Siuan, who'd once mentored her, admitted, "I never would have dared that." Another test came in the last battle. A memory of light, when the Dark One's forces breached Sheol Ghul. Egwene was tasked with leading a circle of 50 Aes Sedai sisters from rival Ajars who'd spent years distrusting each other to weave a shield around the pattern's weakness. The pressure was crushing. One misstep, one broken link, and the Dark One would flood the world with shadow. But Egwene didn't just coordinate the weave. She calmed the sisters, reminding them of their shared purpose, and adjusted the weave on the fly when a Forsaken attacked. By the end, the shield held, and the Aes Sedai stood united. Inexperience didn't stop her. It drove her to prepare harder, to listen more, to be better than the system that would have once rejected her. The question of whether she was a puppet, controlled by the pattern, by Moiraine, by Siuan lingers. But the evidence points to a leader who always held the strings. Moiraine may have planted the seed of her destiny. "You will lead," she'd said in Emond's Field. But Egwene never let Moiraine dictate her path. When Moiraine urged her to focus solely on channeling and ignore Tel'aran'rhiod, Egwene snuck into the tower's library to study the dream world anyway, proving she trusted her own judgment over a seasoned Aes Sedai's. Siuan, too, tried to guide her, once arguing against Egwene's plan to negotiate with the Seanchan, fearing the Seanchan would demand more demand. But Egwene stood her ground, pointing out that the tower needed the Seanchan's help to defeat the Dark One. The negotiation worked, the Seanchan agreed to a truce, and the tower avoided a costly war. Even the pattern, which wove her as veren, didn't control her. She chose to embrace her destiny, not just follow it. When she was offered a chance to step down as Amyrlin after uniting the tower, she refused, saying, "The tower needs someone who remembers what it's like to be a novice, not just an Aes Sedai." She made choices that the pattern might not have planned, like defending Wolf Brothers from the tower's suspicion, or allowing male channelers to train in Tar Valor. Choices that shaped the tower's future, not just her own. She wasn't a puppet. She was a weaver, using the threads of circumstance and talent to make something new. In the end, Egwene's ascent was neither pure genius nor pure luck. It was the rare intersection of both. The White Tower's chaos gave her a chance to lead, but her talent and will turned that chance into a legacy. She didn't just rise fast. She rose well, fixing the tower's flaws, uniting its sisters, and proving that leadership isn't about how long you wait for power, but how you use it when you get it. The debate over her advancement will always exist, but one thing is clear. The old White Tower would have never let her become Amyrlin. But the new White Tower built by her, for the people, not just the system, couldn't have existed without her. She was a product of her time, yes, but she also changed her time. Proving that sometimes the right person in the right place isn't just fortuitous. It's necessary. Egwene's first days wearing the Amyrlin shawl weren't marked by celebration. They were marked by crisis. The White Tower, still fragile from Elida's reign, faced two furies at once. The Black Ajar, whose members had hidden in the tower's ranks for centuries, sowing betrayal and death, and the Last Battle, whose shadow stretched over every village, every Aes Sedai, every thread of the pattern. It was in this fire of conflict that her leadership style, once a raw blend of Two Rivers' stubbornness and untrained talent, forged into something both sharp and compassionate. Early in her reign, during the Black Ajar hunt, the Gathering Storm, she rejected the tyranny Elida had used, mass arrests, torture, guilt by association, and chose a quieter, more precise path. She relied on Tel'aran'rhiod to root out traitors. In the dream world, Black Ajar members couldn't hide their true allegiances, their weaves tinged with the Dark One's taint. She paired trusted sisters, Nynaeve with her uncanny ability to detect lies, and Elaine with her knowledge of tower politics, with newer Aes Sedai who'd escaped Elida's purges, creating teams that valued evidence over fear. When a Red Ajar sister was accused of Black Ajar membership, Egwene didn't order her execution. She brought her to the hall, presented the proof, a dream world recording of the sister plotting with the Forsaken, and let the hall decide her fate. Tyranny doesn't fix treachery, she told the sisters afterward. Trust does, even when it's hard. By the time the last battle arrived, a memory of light, her leadership had evolved into something even more powerful. She didn't just command, she united. When Aes Sedai from rival Ajars bickered over strategy, the Blue Ajar wanted to focus on protecting Rand, the Green on fighting shadowspawn. Egwene gathered them in the tower's courtyard and reminded them of their shared oath. We are not blue or green or red. We are Aes Sedai, bound to protect the world. She then split the Aes Sedai into teams, each led by a sister from a different Ajar, ensuring no faction dominated. It was a move that turned infighting into collaboration, and it likely saved thousands of lives when the Dark One's forces attacked Sheol Ghul. Her leadership wasn't about being feared. It was about being seen, and letting the sisters see each other too. That unity didn't come without cost, though. Egwene made controversial decisions as Amyrlin that split the tower, even as she worked to heal it. The most divisive was her truce with the Seanchan, Knife of Dreams. For decades, the Seanchan had captured Aes Sedai, collaring them as Damaneh slaves who existed to channel at their master's command. When Egwene proposed a truce, we fight the Dark One first, we settle our differences later. The outcry was immediate. Lelaine, the senior Blue Ajar sister, accused her of selling the tower's honor. A group of Green Ajar sisters even threatened to leave, saying they'd rather fight the Seanchan than ally with them. Egwene didn't back down. She brought a former Damaneh, an Aes Sedai named Bethaman, before the hall, who told of the Seanchan's own fear of the Dark One, of their leader's willingness to set aside the collar to survive. The Seanchan are not our friends, Egwene admitted, but they are not the Dark One. And if we fight two wars at once, we will lose both. The truce held, and it proved vital. Seanchan soldiers helped defend Tar Balon when shadowspawn attacked, and their Damaneh, now fighting voluntarily, wove weaves that strengthened the Aes Sedai's shields at Sheol Ghul. But the cost lingered. Some sisters never forgave her, and a small faction broke away, vowing to free all Damaneh, even if it meant ignoring the last battle. Another controversial choice was her decision to allow Logain Abla, once a false dragon now healed of Sideen's taint, to train male channelers in a compound near Tar Valon, a memory of light. Traditionalists, especially in the Red Ajar, called it madness, warning that male channelers would bring another breaking. Egwene argued that fear of the past shouldn't blind us to the present. She assigned Red Ajar sisters to oversee the training, giving them a stake in its success, and invited villagers from the Two Rivers to visit, showing them that male channelers were just people. Fathers, farmers, friends. The compound became a bridge between genders, and by the last battle, Loghain's trainees were key to mending the pattern's frayed edges. But the division remained. Some Red Ajah sisters never set foot in the compound, and old prejudices died hard. It's impossible to talk about Egwene's leadership without wondering, what if things had been different? What if another leader had worn the Amyrlin's shawl during the crisis? Let's start with Seanchan, the former Amyrlin who was still beloved by the Blue Ajah. Seanchan was sharp, politically savvy, and loyal. But she was also tied to the old tower's ways. She likely wouldn't have negotiated with the seanchan. Her hatred of the Damane system was too deep. Without that truce, the seanchan might have attacked Tar Valon during the last battle, forcing the Aes Sedai to fight a two-front war. The tower would have lost sisters, resources, and time. The Dark One would have used to break the pattern. What if Lelaine, the Blue Ajah's most senior sister, had become Amyrlin? Lelaine was a traditionalist who valued the Ajah's power over unity. She would have purged Elaida's former supporters, mostly Red Ajah sisters, instead of integrating them, keeping the tower split. Without a united tower, the Aes Sedai couldn't have formed the large circles needed to shield Sheol Ghul, and the Dark One's influence would have flooded the world. What if Egwene had given in to the pressure and rejected Loghain's male channelers? Rand would have had no one to help him mend the pattern. Saidin's raw power would have torn it further, even as he fought the Dark One. The world might have survived the last battle, but it would have been a broken world, divided by fear of male channelers, just as the tower once was. Egwene's choices weren't perfect. They were messy, divisive, and risky. But they were the right choices for a world on the brink of destruction. She didn't lead like the Amyrlins of the past. She led like the world needed her to lead. The weight of the Amyrlin shawl is heavy in the best of times. For Egwene, it was a weight forged in conflict, carried through controversy, and balanced by the quiet certainty that she was doing what had to be done. She didn't become a perfect leader, but she became the leader the tower and the world needed. Her legacy isn't just a united tower or a one last battle. It's a lesson. Leadership in crisis isn't about being loved. It's about being brave. Brave enough to make the hard choices, brave enough to trust even when it hurts, brave enough to see a better future when everyone else sees only darkness. The White Tower had many Amyrlins before Egwene, but few carried the shawl with such purpose. Few turned crisis into hope, and few proved that a farm girl from the Two Rivers could change the world, one difficult choice at a time. Egwene's legacy isn't etched in the White Tower's stone walls, or in the prophecies of the Dragon Reborn. It's woven into the very fabric of the institution she saved, a tapestry of reforms that turned a stagnant, divided tower into one that could face the future. Her ultimate contributions go far beyond uniting the split, Aes Sedai, or leading them through the last battle. She rewrote the rules of what it meant to be Amyrlin, to be Aes Sedai, and to serve the world, not just tradition. The most enduring change was her dismantling of the tower's cruel hierarchy. She ended the arbitrary punishment of novices, no more scrubbing floors until hands bled for minor mistakes, expanded access to training, allowing wilders, women who discovered channeling on their own, to join without shame, and insisted that Aes Sedai listen to the younger sisters, not just dismiss them as inexperienced. In A Memory of Light's epilogue, we see the fruit of this. Novices and accepted sit in on hall meetings, offering input on tower policy, while Aes Sedai of all Ayars laughed together in the courtyard. A sight unthinkable before Egwene. She also transformed the Red Ajah, once a faction obsessed with gentling male channelers, into a group focused on healing and protection. Under her guidance, Red Sisters trained alongside Loghain's male channelers, learning to mend the taint's damage instead of fearing it. Even the tower's relationship with the outside world changed. She opened its gates to villagers, to wolf brothers, to the seanchan. After the last battle, the Damane collars were banned, and former Damane became full Aes Sedai, turning the tower from a closed fortress into a bridge between magic and ordinary life. Perhaps her greatest contribution, though, was restoring the tower's purpose. It stopped being a place that hoarded power and became one that used it to lift others up. When a young farm girl from Andor arrives at the tower years later, asking to learn channeling, she's not met with suspicion. She's handed a book on Teleran Riod and told, "Your talent is a gift, not a flaw." That's Egwene's legacy, a tower that sees potential, not just protocol. To truly understand Egwene, though, we must rethink the initial impressions of her rise. Impressions that often frame her as a lucky farm girl who rode chaos to power. Many first saw her as too young, too stubborn, too unschooled in tower politics to deserve the Amyrlin shawl. They saw her rapid promotions as a symptom of the tower's collapse, not a testament to her skill. But let's set aside that narrative for a moment. Ask yourself, would a lucky girl have survived Elida's dungeon, turning a cell into a command center? Would a lucky girl have outmaneuvered a Forsaken in Teleran Riod, or united warring Ajas with nothing but words? Would a lucky girl have risked her life to negotiate a truce with the Seanchan, knowing it could cost her the loyalty of her own sisters? Egwene's rise was not about luck. It was about seizing the chaos and turning it into opportunity. She didn't just benefit from the tower's breakdown, she fixed it, using her Two Rivers roots, her belief in fairness, in listening, in standing up for the vulnerable, as a compass. Those who initially dismissed her as too country soon learned that her roots were her strength. She didn't play the tower's political games, she refused to. When Lelaine tried to manipulate her into favoring the Blue Aja, Egwene told her, "I serve the tower, not your faction." When the Green Aja demanded she prioritize fighting over healing, she reminded them, "We can't save the world if we don't save the people in it." Her stubbornness, once seen as a flaw, became her greatest asset. It kept her from compromising on what was right, even when everyone around her urged her to bend. Rethink her rise, and you don't see a girl who got lucky. You see a leader who was ready, even when the world wasn't ready for her. The final verdict on Egwene's rapid ascent is not a simple yes or no. It's a recognition that her rise was both a symptom of the White Tower's chaos and a triumph of her character, and that without it, the Wheel of Time world would have fallen to the Dark One. Was her ascent messy? Did it divide the tower? At least temporarily. But was it beneficial? Unequivocally. Let's consider the alternative. If the tower had stuck to its old ways, Elaida would have remained Amyrlin, the Aes Sedai would have stayed split, and the Dark One's forces would have overwhelmed them in the last battle. The tower's chaos gave Egwene a chance, but her talent and heart made that chance count. She didn't just fill a void, she rebuilt the space around it, making the tower stronger than it had ever been. Her controversial decisions, from the Seanchan truce to the male channeler compound, were not perfect, but they were necessary. The truce bought the tower time to prepare for the last battle. The compound gave Rand the allies he needed to mend the pattern. Could another leader have done it? Perhaps, but not in the way Egwene did. Siuan would have clung to tradition, Lelaine to factionalism, Elida to fear. Only Egwene had the courage to break the rules and the compassion to rebuild them with everyone in mind. Her ascent was not about being the best, Aes Sedai. It was about being the right one, at the right time, with the right heart. In the end, she didn't just become Amyrlin. She became the change the tower needed, proving that sometimes the most unexpected leaders are the ones who save us. Egwene Alvear's story asks us to look beyond the surface, to see that greatness isn't about following the path laid out for you, but about carving a new one when the old path crumbles. Her rise was a product of chaos, yes, but it was her genius to turn that chaos into hope. The White Tower and the world are better because of her. Not just because she won battles or united factions, but because she reminded everyone that power without compassion is empty, and tradition without purpose is a cage. When we talk about the heroes of the Wheel of Time, we often focus on Rand, on Perrin, on Mat, but Egwene's legacy is just as vital. She saved the tower, and in saving it, she saved a part of the world that would have been lost to fear and division. Was her rapid ascent worth it? For the farm girl who now learns channeling without shame, for the Red Sister who heals instead of harms, for the tower that stands as a beacon instead of a fortress. Yes. It was more than worth it. It was more than worth it. It was necessary, and in that necessity we find the truest measure of a leader. Not how they rise, but what they build when they get there.